All right, you're listening to police and the mayor down there outside of Birmingham talking about the church shooting at an Episcopal church there, St. Stephen's Episcopal Church, that happened at 6:22, they tell us, yesterday. For more on this, I want to bring in ABC News contributor and former FBI agent Brad Garrett for more on this. First, Brad, just let me ask, were you able to hear what the police just said?
I did.
Okay.
I heard both the mayor and the chief.
Okay.
Or Captain.
Fantastic. So the latest that we have, he wouldn't identify the shooter, just a 71-year-old male who was at that dinner that he called Baby Boomers potluck dinner, and that this particular person had been to that church, you know, a number of times before. Obviously, this brings up, you know, what happened with Dylan Roof in the South Carolina church. He had prayed with those folks before he opened fire. But what are your thoughts on the details of this particular shooting?
So, you know, when you look at church shootings, they generally fall into a couple of categories. One, like in Dylan Roof's case, he was driven to attack African Americans. And typically the other side of church shootings are personal. They're going after relatives, people they have a relationship with, somebody they have a beef with. So if you look at the dynamics of what little we know, Phil, is that described as an occasional member, shows up at this potluck dinner / meeting, was there for at least a period of time, would have been accepted in because he was a member, and then at some point obviously produces a firearm and shoots 3 people. So only based on those facts, it suggests that it's some sort of personal issue, revenge, beef, whatever you might want to call it, by the shooter. And, you know, eventually that will come out. But, you know, it's another example of churches are, you know, open, receptive, even to strangers. Like Dylan Roof was not part of that Bible study where he killed all those folks in Charleston, South Carolina. But that's why we go to church, because it's a safe place to go, it's open, etc. And this is another, you know, sad example of somebody able to go in and wreak havoc.
Yeah, and we've seen that at other houses of worship too, at synagogues and mosques, because they are open and they want people to come in and pray with them. We do know a little bit more. We don't know about motive, as you speak to, but it looks like it potentially, in cases like this, have been personal. But we do know that this suspect, after he was able to open fire with a handgun, was subdued by another attendee of this Boomers potluck meeting, and the chief there, the captain, saying that that person is a hero. It seems like, and we've been talking a lot about guns, Brad, and mass shootings over the last month or so with Buffalo and then Uvalde, and a lot of the times in these mass shootings we are seeing AR-15 style assault rifles, whatever the brand may be, that fire these 223 rounds and are very powerful and have high capacity magazines. This was a handgun. This person allegedly opened fire and was able to be subdued by somebody because either, you know, whatever, the gun jammed, he was done with the rounds, whatever it was, he was able to be subdued. How important is that in a situation like this?
Well, it's extremely important. Anytime you have someone with a weapon within a group of people or children, the quicker you can get to them, the potential of saving more lives, both of the people injured, obviously, and anyone else that had not been shot or injured. So it's the absolute key, as the captain pointed out, or he chose not to tell us, how many other people were actually in the room or in proximity to this shooter. But he's absolutely right. This person who subdued the shooter is truly a hero and may well have saved his own life by doing this. So, you know, that's what we're supposed to do. That's what the law enforcement is supposed to do, which didn't happen, as you well know, in Uvalde. Time is of essence in saving people's lives.
Brad, stay with me here. I want to bring in Elwyn Lopez, who was inside the police station for that news conference. Elwyn's now outside, ready to talk with us. Elwyn, thanks. And you know, you've been there. You've been covering this story since the beginning. Anytime there is a shooting at a house of worship, it is usually the house of worship is surrounded by a tight-knit community. Tell us about that particular community there and how hard this is hit.
Well, that's what the mayor said in this press conference, that this is a tight-knit community, and we saw that today. A lot of people coming together. We know that other churches are also hosting memorials and vigils in honor of the victims. And Phil, you were talking about this this man, this shooter, the occasional attendee of the church. That is how they described, and we don't know if he attends that church often or how often. He was 71 years old, and the person that the two people he killed, we don't know. I asked the captain there, how does the victims, if they knew the shooter at all, and he was not able to provide an answer to that. We know that multiple agencies are working on this to determine how they were connected, if at all. And we also know that in the calls, the dispatch calls, that it seemed that they knew of this suspect from previous incidents, but we know that the captain here would not go into detail about it. So actually, we left the press conference with more questions than answers, Phil.
Right, and he did tell us, Elwyn, about the ages of the victims, and you can't make anything from that, but they tell us the shooter was 71 years old. One of the victims who was killed is 71 as well. So, you know, whatever that may be. But, Elwyn, when it comes to the victims in this community, with 2 dead, 1 at the hospital, what has the community been doing? We saw when we were out in Uvalde, obviously, the outpouring of support there. But what have you seen in that community so far?
Well, and the two are very different, right? It seems like one of them obviously was a mass shooting. In this case, it was someone who was aware of the church, had gone to the church multiple times, and the 2 people that are deceased, one was 75 years old and the other one 84. And so they're trying to determine what the connection is between that, but it does seem to be something different than what we've seen in terms of these mass shootings that seem to be very random in nature. This one does not seem to be the case. However, they would not go into detail as to how or if they knew each other, the shooter and the victims. In terms of the community, Phil, I can tell you that we've seen people coming out. A lot of people, I can tell you, my mother actually didn't live very far from here, and I know this community very well. And it is a very tight-knit community. Everybody seems to know everyone. Again, they were having a potluck at this church. And even this morning, we were up really early. You could see people running and jogging around, walking their dogs, some people stopping by to figure out what exactly was happening. So this is a community, a lot of people know everyone here, and that is how tight-knit it is here. So we are expecting to see vigils and memorials throughout the day here.
Brad, I want to get back to you, and you know, the captain didn't want to speculate, but I do want to talk about this because while I was out in Uvalde, a lot of people, you know, obviously it goes to the gun and the weapon used, and that's what happens after mass shootings. You know, almost immediately guns, mental health, whatever side you're on. But it does seem that if the shooter out in Uvalde had a handgun, you know, maybe police would have gone in, maybe someone would have attacked him. The gun makes a difference. The amount of firepower makes a difference, especially in a situation like this, does it not?
Oh, there is no doubt. I mean, the idea that you can basically disperse a 30-round AR-15 type weapon in basically 10 to 15 seconds at most. And so you can think, in theory, you could kill 25 or 30 people in under a half a minute. Handgun, obviously, you can trick them out so they'll fire faster or even make them automatic. But, you know, the bullets are not going as fast. They're not as big. And yes, the idea that the lethality of a AR-15 type weapon, you know, clearly is there in Uvalde and obviously a number of other shootings we've talked about.
Let's quickly listen back in. We cut a piece of sound from the newser where they were talking about the suspect, and this is really all we know about the suspect. Let's listen to it.
Our investigation, while ongoing, has revealed that an occasional attendee of the church that I will only identify as a white male, aged 71, was at the dinner. At some point, he produced a handgun and began shooting, striking 3 victims.
Elwyn, just quickly, the 3 victims from the community, as you were talking about, this suspect may have been known to police, certainly known to people, it seems like, at that Boomers potluck. That makes it a little bit different from what we've seen, too. Perhaps this wasn't an outsider coming into a community, but someone from the community.
Yeah, that's right, Phil. It doesn't seem like he was an outsider. It seems like this was someone who occasionally, as the captain said, would go to that church and knew some of the members. Again, it's unclear whether he knew the victims, but it was someone that was attending that potluck. And again, as they explained to us here, this is a tight-knit community. Everyone seems to know everyone here, Phil. So it seems like right now that might be playing into why the police is not releasing the name. We don't know exactly why that is. Obviously, the warrants will be issued later today, and we know that that will play into that as well. So we expect to learn the name of that suspect at least later today, if not within the next few hours.
All right, Brad, and finally, just quickly, in the last 30 or so seconds that we have, this kind of lone wolf that we have all been warned about by the government, this seems to be what we've been seeing lately with mass shootings and this shooting.
And sadly, they do copy each other to a certain extent. We have no idea if that's applicable to this church shooting, but they get emboldened by other shootings. And whatever triggered this guy, it'll be interesting to know if, in fact, it was some previous shooting.
All right, Brad Garrett, Elwyn Lopez, thank you both.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.